Hello and welcome to Express Sports Podcast. You're listening to Game Time with me, Mihir Vasavda. आज मेरे साथ मेरे सामने बैठे हुए विनायक Mohanarangan. This is the first time, Vinayakk, that we are recording from the same room without
Zooms and
yeah. Amit unfortunately isn't with us today. I must underline he's still very much with us, but he's just because of all the logistical and timing issues to coordinate. Unfortunately, he isn't there today, and it's a shame because Vinayakk, we will be talking about a topic which I think is the biggest talking point in Indian sport this week, the Paralympics. Incredible performance. I don't think a lot of us saw this coming. I mean, last episode I said 15 medals.
Yeah.
And here we are with 29 medals, 7 golds, 9 silver, 13 bronze medals. It's an incredible performance, Vinayakk.
Yeah, I think so. The expectations were there. I don't think we probably gave it too much credence that, 30, 35 was probably a little out of the bounds. But most people who spoke about what was on the cards was 25. 25 is, that the target that they had. I think it was fair to say that we were going to cross 19 for sure from Tokyo, just based on the fact that, there were more badminton events, around 17 medals, I think this year, just a few months back at the World Athletics Championships, so Para-Athletics Championships. So just those two put together, it seemed like 19 would be easily overcome. And I think, with a few days to go, with 8 medals on Monday, 5 medals on Tuesday, and I think 5 more on Wednesday, we crossed 19, I think quite at a canter, so to speak. I think the event scheduling also helped. Kind of the big events were all front-loaded, so a lot of those medals.
The momentum was built.
Yeah, and it helped that once you hit the ground running, you were in Paris, and I think you could probably attest to the fact that when the contingent wins a medal, there is a buzz.
Yeah.
And then what happened with Vinesh, it just deflates, right? So one of those two things can affect the contingent positively or negatively. I think they started off really well, and I think that kind of paved the way for them to. It's not a surprise that they crossed Tokyo. I think it's fair to say that. But yeah, it's incredible how the fact that there was an expectation and that was matched, it's not something that we see often in Indian sport. Yeah. The expectations and the reality, these memes that do the rounds on social media, Instagram and real life, that sort of contrast is always there. So in a sense that, there were expectations and they were met, I think that is one of the biggest takeaways for me from the Paralympics for sure.
So of course, in this episode, we'll be talking about what led to this whole spike in medals and where it came from, because that's in itself a very interesting story, who pushed the medal surge and how it came about and everything. But in the first part, I think we should focus on who were the key medal winners, what were the landmark medals, because this is the evening where the closing ceremony will be held of the Paralympics as our listeners tune into this episode. And 25 is a big number, so it's practically impossible for us to go medal by medal. But why don't we start with the first timers this time, which were the sport where India actually had a big breakthrough?
Yeah. So that is what most of the medals, I think you could say, I lost count of the repeat medalists, but, even off the top of my head, quite a few were the same medals that were in Tokyo, Sumit winning gold in Tokyo and Paris, Avni winning a gold and gold, Yogesh winning a silver and silver, Nishad winning a silver and silver, Suhas winning a silver and silver. So there were quite a few of these repeat medals, which I think that was needed for the base, sort of, 15, 16 to be achieved. For it to be pushed, I think, first mentioned, we've been talking about this since before the Olympics began, from the previews that we did for the Olympics archery, right? It's been a source of sometimes great exhilaration, shoot-off win and all that you see. It's a sport that gives you a lot of highs, but unfortunately for Indian sport, it also given us a lot of lows.
More heartbreaks
than highs, really, at the Olympics, more than Paralympics. We did have a medal in Paralympics last time as well with Harvinder, and for India to finally have an archery champion in one of these big events, I think that it was too close for comfort in most of the cases in the Olympics, where we had plenty of heartbreaks, moments where we should have gone on to win medals, the draws getting open and we're not able to take advantage, sets being there to win and we're not able to take advantage, all that. And then we finally saw Harvinder do what he did, just shooting 10s and 9s in the final to win it.
I mean, Harvinder's gold was later in the Paralympics. I must add that the evening, I think, before Sheetal Devi and Rakesh Kumar, they won their bronze medal. Vinayakk had given like a threat I'll just say it was a threat, an emotional blackmail or whatever you can call it, where he said that if these guys don't win the medal today, that's it. I'm not watching archery ever again in life. And as much as that medal for India, we're also praying कि यार because Vinayak अगर जो archery छोड़ देगा तो मतलब that would be a bigger loss. And thankfully, Vinayak did not have to give up on archery. He also lived to tell a tale and see India win a gold medal too.
Yeah. Imagine they didn't win a medal that day and I skipped Harvinder's entire event because of the bet. I mean, I don't think that would have happened anyway. But yeah, I mean, Rakesh and Sheetal, we have to mention. I think Sheetal was a very interesting case since we're talking about first-timers and people who pushed the medal tally and all that. Sheetal is a very interesting case because she came into the Paralympics, her debut at 17 as some of the face of the games.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, you don't just see that sort of a thing happen. She is not just, I mean, she was already sort of, I wouldn't say mainstream in India, but she was there and thereabouts. A lot of people knew about. Yeah. Asian Para Games last year, I think, kind of brought her, and World Para Championship silver and all that. It's not events that people follow regularly, but there was something about Sheetal that caught attention in India already. We have to say Nitin won an award last year. Speaking of Sheetal Devi. He just won an award this week for that story. Worth mentioning that. And then she became like a global face. BBC is writing about her. The Athletic and New York Times are featuring her as the centerpiece of the story. So for her to come into a debut Paralympics like that and then face a heartbreak immediately the first round in her individual event must have been hard. And to recover from that and win a bronze with Rakesh I think that was a nice moment. I think it's a bronze ultimately, but I think it was a very it was a loved medal, so to speak, and one that I think Sheetal needed as well, just to make sure that her confidence is not shaken too much.
Sheetal's story is terrific. This armless archer who's it's defying every sense and every logic. And what I found interesting about her story is also how she got into archery. I was speaking to Nandan Kamath from Go Sports. He's the co-founder of Go Sports, an organization that's been helping para athletes for the last 10 years. And Nandan told me the story where they received a communication from an NGO in Jammu. And it wasn't a sports organization, I think. It's just an NGO where they wrote about this girl who they thought was talented, but they didn't know what to do with her talent, like where to use it, how to go about it. And the idea was that she should maybe play a sport. And Nandan and his team at Go Sports, they suggested that she goes and meets a sports science expert. So they go to, I think, Delhi, where they meet Shrikant Iyengar. He's one of the renowned sports science experts who's worked with the hockey team before and then some of the top Indian athletes. And Shrikant runs a bunch of tests on her. And he comes out with a report, Nandan said, where he remarked that the core strength she had was more than anyone else he's ever seen. And he recommended that, archery is an ideal sport for her, even though she didn't have arms. So imagine the core strength she possesses. And I think we saw a lot of that because I'm always awestruck at how she manages to shoot. The distance as it is quite huge. And on top of that, she is sitting on a wheelchair and has to make up for the lost height advantage. And then the whole thing about shooting without her arms. I think what she's done is mind-boggling.
And I think it's kind of reflected in the sort of, social media sensation that she's become.
Yeah.
So I think, in that sense, it was important for her to come back with a medal, not just be,
the feel-good story.
Yeah. It didn't have to be that, she won hearts. We always say this in Indian sport, they didn't win a medal, but she won hearts. But at 17, on her debut, to know that she's capable of doing what she did, that 703 in the ranking round was sensational. First, she and the other, the Turk, who ended up winning gold, broke 700 barrier for the first time. They were the only two to break 700 ever in compound para women. And so to start off like that and then to finish with that bronze medal, and we have to speak about Rakesh as well here.
Yeah.
When Sheetal was under pressure, she shot a 7, I think, in the semi-final that they lost. And then, the whole semi-final was a whole lot of drama. Otherwise,
the bronze medal match?
The bronze medal match, she actually was much better than the semis. She managed to recover, and I think a lot of that was down to Rakesh. A 39-year-old standing next to sort of this father figure, so to speak, calming her down. And, that was a very nice dynamic to watch. So a lot of credit to Rakesh that, he kind of guided Sheetal through that. By the time the next Paralympics comes, she's going to be 21. Matt Stutzman, the original armless archer who won silver in London 2012, he uses almost the same. So he basically invented this technique of shooting without arms, and he ended up winning gold in Paris fittingly. And he spoke about Sheetal before the Paris that she is the future of the sport. And for the OG armless archer to say that about Sheetal at 17 is a great thing, and she'll go on to achieve big things. Archery is a sport where age is not really a bar. We saw a 65-year-old archer compete against Harvinder in his individual event. So if Sheetal could shoot till 65, she'll have probably what? 10, 15 Paralympic medals.
Imagine if Sheetal can shoot even as much as Rakesh Kumar, 39. So she has 22 more years. That's what? Close to 4 more Paralympics.
5,
yeah. It's quite incredible. Since we are on this subject, we're talking about Sheetal. I think it's a nice segue to get into how basically this entire medal surge is also a reason. One of the reasons is the rise of women para-athletes.
Yeah.
On double-digit medals for them. I mean, it's again one of those stories which it's difficult for us to kind of make sense of it in a 20-minute podcast because there's just so much happening behind the scenes. But to kind of put it in perspective, at the Rio Paralympics, India won their first Indian woman to win a medal. Deepa, she became in shot put. She won the medal. Then in Tokyo, India added 3 more. So there were 4 medals heading into the Paris Paralympics. And now over here, it's not just matching that target, but doubling it and more than doubling it. And that is a remarkable story in itself.
Yeah, if you consider just the women medals from Paris, we won more than, any Paralympics we have done before in the history of Indian sport other than just Tokyo, right? Just the women's medal in Paris is more than that. We wrote this story after the Olympics where we spoke about the women power in USA. USA's medal tally, that whole race with China and how it was fitting that, the USA women's basketball team were the one who helped them level it with China and then USA finishing number 1. And the whole breakdown that we had done in the medals of USA's women would have been just, if you take just USA's women's medals, they would have been 3rd on the table and all that. We did all that and then to suddenly see that happening with India, the Paralympics is a nice thing. We have to say, so in the Olympics, it's almost over the past 20 years, the women have played a significant role in the Olympic medal haul, as small as the number is. Right from Karnam Malleshwari to Saina to Sindhu to Sakshi, even in Tokyo with Lavlina, Mirabai. In Olympics, it's always been the case where the women in the last century have stepped up quite often. But for para-athletes to go from where they were in 2016, which is just 8 years back when you think about it, this is just 1 medal, Deepa Malik winning that silver. In just 8 years to have this exponential rise, I think that speaks to a lot about just Paralympics being visible, right? Just para-athletes knowing that this is an avenue for them. I think Deepa's medal played a big part in that. You've written in your piece as well about how she's spoken about how the questions that people asked her, just the kind of things that we probably wouldn't be able to imagine just, being as able-bodied people. We wouldn't be able to even think about certain things that, they have to face on a daily basis. And for them to know that this is an avenue, and this is something that Viren Raskina keeps speaking about in the studios, even during the Paris Paralympics when he was on the Geo studios. If you give the same sort of platform to a female athlete and a male athlete in India, I'm very confident that the female athlete will do better. He said that. In terms of how the women keep pushing the boundaries, if all the things around them are the same, I'm 100% certain that the female athlete would do better just making the most of what's available to them. I think we've seen that in the Paralympic cycle over the last 8 years, and it's just a remarkable achievement. We just mentioned a few names. Avni Lekara winning 2 gold medals. That's, unprecedented. We've had track medalists. The
only athlete to win 2 medals at these games.
Yeah, Priti Pal, Deepti, Simran. We've had track athletes coming up really, really impressively. Sheetal, of course, we've already mentioned. Badminton, we have to make a brief mention because in Tokyo, we had 4 medals in badminton and none of them were women. 2 gold, 1 bronze, 1 silver, all men. Suddenly we come to Paris, we have 5 medals. None of the guys who won a medal in Tokyo won a medal apart from Suhas. But the propping up comes from 3 women who win 2 bronze and 1 silver. Tulsi, Manisha and Nitishri winning bronze. So that kind of helped the badminton tally just about Tokyo's mark. So again, all these women's medals they played a big part in not just meeting 19. I think meeting 19 would have probably happened anyway. But pushing it to that initial target that they had, it's been a big factor.
You mentioned the conversation I had with Deepa Malik, and she pointed out 2 very interesting things. One is that she was talking to one of the aspiring para-athletes back in the days, this some years ago. And the question she had wasn't about the sport. But the question she was faced with was the athlete asked Deepa that if she was on a long haul flight, a 9-hour flight, how will she use the washroom while being on a wheelchair? And, this is something that, to be honest, I never thought about until this point was raised by Deepa Malik. And it wasn't just this issue, right? It was girls coming up to her and saying that they were considered burden on the family. The society thought that, I mean, her word was कि हमें बेकार लग रहे थे. And these are the prejudices, these are the accessibility issues that they faced. And in a way, Deepa Malik's medal in 2016 played a big role in changing the whole perspective. Deepa said that people saw how empowered women become once they win a medal. The cash prizes that follow, for whatever it's worth, the Prime Minister tweeting about them, calling them on over phone and also to his residence. You get cash prizes. Deepa, with her cash prize, bought a home, bought a car. And these are all very big deal. And if you are a young athlete trying to make a career in sport, that's an example. And that's a dream that you want to pursue. And I think a lot of these athletes who have won medals here would have been inspired what happened 8 years ago too, because that's the age group we are talking about right now. So in that sense, that was a landmark medal. But I guess now there are multiplied the stories and, the inspirational acts that will, I guess, I don't know how it will be when LA comes, but, you would expect it to multiply now on.
And just the awareness, right? I just want to mention one thing here. There is this feature in the Netflix, The Rising Phoenix. I keep speaking about it.
Yeah. It's a great recommendation. I think someone mentioned it on the comments too, that it's a great recommendation.
Yeah. So there is an Australian swimmer, Ellie Cole, who is the most decorated Paralympic athlete in the history of Australian para movement. Last time in Tokyo, she retired after Tokyo. And there was a video where she's speaking to a media outlet and she's saying, I'm going to retire, whatever, and it's great that I've won these many medals. And she mentions two swimmers' names that, now that I'm going off, there are people who are coming up and there's a video of that swimmer listening to that interview and then just going crazy. Like she's a kid, some 6-7-year-old kid, and who's apparently pursuing both archery and swimming. And she's expected to go to the next Paralympics. She just goes crazy and she can't believe what's happening. So these are the moments where, you become what you see, right?
Yeah.
And I think just the fact that more people are following the Paralympics, it's important. I mean, it's probably not at the level it must be. Just for that feeling that, and Ellie Cole also mentions that if my parents knew about Paralympics when I was 3 and diagnosed with whatever, they would have had more hope. That's the line that she uses. So this is a kind of, it's not just the sport we are talking about, it's also the kind of chances this sport offers for them at a better life, right? And we shouldn't disregard that. I think that's kind of what happened with Deepa and, kind of going from 3 medals in Tokyo to whatever we have in Paris. So yeah, that's been one of the biggest takeaways for me from Paris for sure.
No, absolutely. And I think it's only going to improve. The investment is increasing in para sports, and how the whole accessibility issue is dealt with will be the biggest challenge.
Right.
Of course, it's nothing to say that it's all like rosy in the para sport world. I mean, if you're remotely associated or if you're remotely aware of how Indian sport is run, I don't think anything is kind of straightforward. But this is a great platform. But when I just coming to the conclusion of it, Olympics ho gaya, Paralympics ho gaya. What's the reason for us to live anymore now?
There's a Women's World Cup coming up in 3 weeks.
Oh, well. So you can basically, so that's what Vinayakk is saying, that he's going to sleep for 2.5 weeks and then come out of his cave and then go.
Yeah. I was just thinking, 2025 is actually quite a barren year. If you recall, after the pandemic, we had Olympics in 2021. We had Commonwealth in 2022, and then the Asian Games was postponed to 2023, and we had Paris in 2024. So the last 4 years, we've had one major event every year.
So basically, sporting world, the normalcy returns now.
Yeah, we have 1 year without any of these. It's just the World Championships that we need to follow. So there's no one major event in 2025.
And
break in 2025, so to speak.
If you had to look back and reminisce about major events, say in 2025, you're sitting somewhere in Noida and having, I don't know, coffee or whatever you drink, and think back about the Paralympics. What's the one moment that you will kind of,
Archery, both Sheetal and Arvind.
It had to be, because you would almost...
badminton, and we always have hockey in the Olympics and all that, but yeah, archery is not something that I report frequently, but one of the sports that I enjoy watching the most, perhaps. Watch an unhealthy amount of archery for my mental health, mental well-being.
I mean, then that's playing with fire, because you watch unhealthy amount of hockey too. Unhealthy amount of Indian sport, basically.
Yeah. But yeah, so basically I think the fact that Sheetal won a medal and Harvinder's gold, I think, was probably something that I would remember for a long time. What about you?
I'd say not an Indian medal. It was the whole badminton rally where the player was throwing himself from one end of the court to the other, left, right. And that was mental to watch, because he did it not once, two times, at least two times that we saw. And both times I didn't see it live. You sent me the link and you told me that you have to watch this. And I remember the first time I saw, I actually played it again and again, some 6 or 7 times, just to kind of get a sense of how exactly is it doing. And I still don't know how he did it.
That whole category, that SH6 category was sensational. It's just, India didn't win a medal. Krishna didn't, unfortunately, defend his title, but it's one of the most fun categories to watch. There was also that rally in the USA versus Brazil match.
Oh, yeah.
The match point where, the USA guy, Miles Krajewski, just threw everything at it and then ended up losing the point. It's just that whole SH6 badminton was, I think, sensational.
Sensational. So, and of course, like the medals and all will of course be a great memory. But this is something that, it's one of those things, right? The Rio Olympics, Germany-New Zealand hockey match, and unbelievably, Germany scored like 2 goals in the last 10 seconds or whatever. It will be something like that, where you don't know how the athlete is pulling off those shots and retrieving the shuttle, but it's there, it's alive, and the points won too. So I think sometime in 2025 I'll be going back to that video and our chat on that. But I guess if there's nothing else to add, we can call it a day.
Yeah, I think that's a nice place to stop, non-medal topic to discuss for sure.
Non-medal topic to discuss. And I think, this is it for this week. Next week, the band will be back, hopefully. Amit, Vinayakk and me will be back with a new episode of Game Time.
And after 2 months, it's going to be neither Paralympics or Olympics. We'll have to find a new topic to discuss.
I entrust us to get something from one of these two topics, one of these two events, and talk about it.
Yeah, we probably keep extending it
until we have something new to talk about. Just come back, I think, next week and find out what we are talking about. I think it's a good excuse for you to kind of, see if we are dragging the Olympics or what.
Maybe hockey again, Mihir?
I think I have a hunch of what we'll be talking about, and it's interesting. Okay. So I'll leave it at that. So I guess it will be nice for you guys to come back and listen to us. आ जाओ यार, इतना हम आपको request कर रहे हैं. But thanks for listening today, and we'll be back next week.
You were listening to Express Sports by The Indian Express. This week's show was edited and mixed by Suresh Pawar and produced by me, Shashank Bhargava. If you like the show, then do subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts. You can also recommend the show to someone you think will like it. Share it with a friend or someone in your family. It's the best way for people to get to know about us. You can also tweet us at Express Podcasts and write to us at podcasts@indianexpress.com.